There have been a lot of microaggressions. Intelligent people fall for scammers.
You've breached the contract, we have to terminate.
Don't play with my education on this. Do me a favour, meet me on site tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Would you say that renovating was worth it? Hey guys, you're welcome again to my channel. My name is Toriara George. Is your name Toriara George? And we're back talking about our renovation journey. And we hope that you learn lots of lessons all around. We hope you never fall into the situation that we fell into. We're also going to be doing a Q&A at the end. I got a lot of questions from Instagram, and I think it will be important for us to share some of that information if we haven't already shared on the video. We stopped at the steels. Now, here's what happened. The project manager obviously had noticed a lot of issues. There had been a lot of microaggressions because the person who we appointed as project manager, I don't know if a race had anything to do with it, but it was almost like he would come to us to say one thing and go to them to say another thing, almost trying to sabotage what they were doing. And it was just so messy. Anyway, we just felt that at that point, let's just finish this build and let's just get it over with and, break bread and forget that this was ever a part of our lives. But we didn't realize the scale, the true scale of the problem. Now, our project manager, they're a couple, so male and female. The guy walks into the property to inspect the property as always, and then he put his hand up to touch this. Why are you laughing? What's actually funny? This guy. He put his hand up to touch the steel, and he was like, this steel feels too low. And that was literally all he was thinking. Like, this steel just feels too low. My hands can literally touch it without effort. So he was like, you know what? I need to have a conversation.
So obviously, our project manager calls to have a chat about the steel positioning. And he just kicks off. He starts swearing, starts shouting, threatens to come here to take the steels out and all this. It was just basically something that you would see in, out of a movie or a TV show or something like that.
Stop now to take them steels out, I will. I'll pay for the thing that I've upgraded.
I don't appreciate you speaking to me in this manner. I think I have tolerated.
Meet me on site tomorrow and we'll sort it out. But do yourself a favour, get your own deliveries on site. When they land, get them inside. It's not my job.
It was crazy. I'd heard of like builders that, acted like fools, but I'd never experienced that before. So it was quite a surreal moment to watch and hear this guy who we thought was looking out for our best interest just kick off. Also, it's probably worth mentioning that he demonstrated aggressive behavior as well towards the project manager.
So at this point, we were like, okay, it looks like we are in trouble with this builder because this is not normal. But we did not understand the true scale, like the true scale of the damage that he had done to our property. So we decided to get a second opinion. We suspended all works. We decided to get a second opinion. So we got lots of different builders in just to have a look at the property and see, just to get a second opinion of what was going on. They came in, started mentioning so many different things that we thought we knew. Things that he had told us that he did. Things that, oh my God, it was just every single builder that came in here, it was a new revelation. So remember that at this point, we had suspended the works. There was nothing going on. So this place was closed. And I was so heavily pregnant at this point. So it dawned on me that I wasn't going to have my baby in this house. So first of all, I was really upset. I was angry. I was like, this guy. So I feel like my anger was more because I couldn't have the baby here. We decided to reach a resolution because the costs that people were giving us to rectify the works it was completely crazy because builders would charge you a lot more to rectify the work than start a new build. So they were charging us so much more to rectify a lot of the damage that this guy had done. And even at that point, we still did not know the full scale of the damage.
Basically, as you guys will know, builders don't like finish other people's works. That's basically the point. So it's almost like a insurance mechanism, if you will, just to secure themselves. Anyway, so we had a meeting with and our project managers. We drove down.
Called them on site.
We drove down, and when we got here, we were talking about all the different things that needed to be done, especially about the steels. And this guy basically just started kicking off again, threatening to beat up our project manager. And to be honest, I'm just trying to reflect on how I felt at the time. I'm not gonna lie, I feel bad because I feel like I could have done a better job. But at that time, my mindset was, what do we need to do to get
into
this house?
To put this behind us.
We've got a baby arriving. We're paying a mortgage. We're also using up a lot of the savings that we had on this. It's very expensive. So I was just thinking, how can we just reach a resolution and get it done? So at that point, I feel like I could have done a better job calling out the guy's violence, which I hold my hand up, I didn't do. But he wasn't violent. He didn't beat him or anything.
But he was threatening to beat him up.
To be honest, if I'm being honest, this guy, I feel like another reason why I probably didn't do that is because he strikes me as a guy that's just all talk. I just felt like he was someone who did a lot of, he's got the gift of the gab, just chatting rubbish. So I didn't really take him seriously, but obviously that's not something you want to hear directed towards you.
Yeah. Project manager felt very threatened by the behavior and obviously didn't want to work with him anymore, and gave us the advice that we needed to move on from this guy and find new builders.
After we've received that advice, we had to do a lot of thinking, we had to do a lot of considering, and we had to analyze the situation as it was. The challenge we had was that we had paid quite a bit of the money over the period of the works. I'll probably say about maybe 65 to 70% we had already paid. So,
but it wasn't like we paid in advance for stuff.
Yeah,
don't get it wrong. It's not like we were that stupid. We were paying for works as they were happening.
Yeah, we were paying for works as they were happening. So, but obviously the challenge we were facing is that the works that we had paid for were not done correctly. So it's almost like you've paid for something, but you're not receiving the value because the work's been done incorrectly.
Yeah.
So that was why we were almost at a deficit. So we thought about it and we considered the options of how can we recoup this money. We could go through arbitration, we go through legal process, etc. But quite frankly, that was something I was against doing because number one, it's a very long process. Number two, it's very expensive. Number three, there's no guarantee you're going to get anything back. So I felt like it made more sense for us to try and recoup some of the equity, if you will, by getting him to do other things in the house. Let's try and rectify the problems. Let's try and get him to do more things so that the deficit we're at is not, the delta is not that much. Maybe if we're off by 5%, 10%, it's not that bad. So that was what I felt. Obviously, the project managers advised us to get somebody else. So we decided to stick with the builder, and we produced a massive list of things that we needed to do. By the way, it's also worth mentioning that a lot of things with building control hadn't been done correctly as well.
I feel like at this point, it's important for us to list so that people get a real sense and a real picture of the damage that this guy did to the property.
So we'll start with the block work. So the architect had specified that bricks should be used, but this guy went off and got breeze blocks instead. Now, bricks are obviously more expensive, and the reason why he didn't get that is for that reason. The reason the architect specified the bricks was because the boundary was where the block work was going to go up. So you don't want a situation where you need to maintain the brick and you can't access it because the neighbor on the other side has already built up their own side as well. So that's the whole point. That's why you find most houses on the boundary of the building, it's brick because it's long lasting. Like you don't really have to maintain it. Whereas if you use breeze blocks and there's any issue, you're gonna have to access that side to maintain it. So that was one of the things that he didn't. He basically didn't follow the plan.
Yeah.
The second point was to do with the foundation. So he didn't follow the specifications of the structural engineer. Didn't follow the depth of how deep the steels were meant to go into, how the foundation was meant to be built. He didn't follow that for either side. So we had to basically have that redone essentially. Number three,
Building control.
Number three, building control. Building control, we're not really involved. There were a lot of things the building control didn't find out until later. It had to be redug for building control to inspect, only for building control to say that it's not been done well. Then point four was to do with the manhole. When we were going through this renovation process, we realized that the Thames water pipe ran across the boundary where we were meant to build the wall, essentially. So we had to get something called a build-over agreement. And a build-over agreement is essentially an agreement between yourself and the water provider, in this case, Thames Water, to allow for us to build block work over pipe,
yeah.
But it has to be secure. So when we had that, one of the conditions was we needed to move the manhole, which was previously in the building, as it was when the previous owners did it. We needed to move that outside.
Guys, would you believe what this guy did?
So what he did really was, rather than completely closing off and disconnecting and
removing the
old
manhole as he
manhole,
charged us for,
he just put some blocks and bricks.
he put cement
in it and
over
just kind
it.
of left it there. So we were a bit like, okay, this is obviously not done properly. And then even when he did some of the pipe work, the pipes were kind of disconnected. So essentially, if you use the toilet,
go straight to the garden.
You're well, even before it gets to the garden, under the floor, your whatchamacallit is just going to be seeping through. So you're going to have loads of smells and things like that. Funny enough, this was also the same guy who claimed we couldn't move the manhole outside because it would cause a lot of smells. We've never had that issue.
He will come up with the most ridiculous things to justify why he couldn't do something.
Yeah.
There was always one excuse after the other.
There were also so many other examples, but to be honest, there's probably not enough time to go into all of it. But he always claimed that things couldn't be done. Like with the steel, he said it couldn't be.
Oh, it can be done.
He said it had to be that low.
It does not work.
That was his favorite line. It doesn't work. It
does not work.
There were other things that he said didn't work that we've ended up having and we've never had any issues with. So there was just a myriad of issues. The ones I mentioned were the most severe ones that we basically had to rectify.
So many issues. Even till now, when you come into our house, I always say that downstairs is a completely different experience from upstairs. Why? Because he did most of upstairs. And upstairs is literally there's so much work we still have to do upstairs because that was the part of the house that he did.
Yeah. So for the reasons we mentioned previously about, the money and trying to recoup some of the equity, we prepared a list. So we were like, here's the final straw. Here's a full list of things that we need you to do. Here's a full list of things we need you to rectify. It has to be done, ASAP. At this point, it was probably already, I think we had the baby.
Yeah.
We had the baby, it was celebrating baby. And then we're like, okay, we're not going home yet. When are we going home? We don't know.
We have no clue.
So we had to kind of go through that process, out of our home and work through that. So we had this list and we're like, these are the things you need to do, X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. It's quite a long list of serious things and minor things that he needed to fix. So we gave it to him. And to be fair, he started working on it. And this was my idea that we will get him to do a lot of the things so we can recoup the value. So building the roof, the flat roof, finishing the tiling for the extension, all those things kind of getting him to do.
Yeah,
so
without paying extra.
So that when he puts in the request for the next invoice, we're not going to pay that because obviously there are things that you've not done well and that you needed to do essentially. So we went through that process and after a while we realized that this guy was just playing us along.
Yeah. Because he was saying, oh, I can get you in this house in 4 weeks, or how many weeks did you say?
They basically put it this way. After a while, we had a lot of issues with the building works. There were some things that still weren't done right. There were corners being cut. There were just things just weren't going as smoothly as we thought it would. And after a while, we basically put forward a final gauntlet. This is it. If you don't get these things that we need you to do done in time, we're gonna hold you in breach of contract. Yeah. And he didn't do them, lo and behold. And he kept claiming that, we'll get you in this property in the next 4 weeks, even though he hadn't done any plumbing. He hadn't done he hadn't finished the electric.
He was putting toilets when we hadn't even done plumbing.
We hadn't done plumbing, hadn't done plastering, we hadn't done anything. Plastering would have taken about 2 weeks in itself to dry.
And you want to get us in the house in 4 weeks.
So we just knew that he was completely gaslighting us. So after a while, we just realized that, look, you've breached the contract, we have to terminate. And that's what we did. We terminated the contract.
So at this point, we started looking for individual trades. Like, can we get a builder? Can we get a plumber? Can we get this person? Can we get individual trades and have the project manager project manage all of them? That's what we were thinking. Yeah. But I don't think that at this point, because of how lengthy the process had been, the project manager didn't feel like he could commit to doing that, to getting the individual trades. We managed to get a plumber, which came highly recommended and we trusted. But it looked like the process was just not going to work, especially with us being so far away. The process was just not going to work with individual trades because the nightmare of project managing individual trades in a property where you are not present.
Yeah, I know. I know. Also, the fact was there were things that needed to be rectified.
Yes.
So how are you going to supervise?
How are you going to supervise that people are actually doing it properly?
We needed someone who could. Basically, we needed a building company because building control would come in and it was easier for them to have interactions with the building company because if there were other areas of the property that needed to be
one person
fixed,
was responsible.
Bear in mind, there were a lot of areas, not just the structural stuff that we mentioned, but there were other things within the house that needed more minor things, but not as severe as the ones that we mentioned. But building control had a list of 8 items that needed to be fixed as well. So we just felt like we needed to have a building company to rectify these issues. So we just felt like the whole individual trades plan wasn't going to work. So we went, we obviously started searching. I was very young, so we were doing a lot of 3-hour drives here, 3-hour drives back on the same day. It was very exhausting. Whilst working, it was the most stressful period of our lives, put it that way.
It was.
So we did all that. Eventually, we came across a building company called Russell Hughes. This was actually on our way driving back. I think Tura found them.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, what about these people, Russell Hughes?" So I was like, "Send an inquiry. Just send them an inquiry. Let's just get them."
Yeah.
And eventually, they actually got back. Thankfully, they were meant to have a job, but that job
got cancelled.
So the slot was literally God just did it so that the slot was open for us.
I think he just saw that these guys are in such a dire situation. They have a small baby. They need to move into their property. And they moved at lightning speed.
Yeah.
They rectified a lot of the issues. And within 4 months, we moved into this property.
It's funny because the other guy said it would take 4 weeks, but it took 4 months. So it's just laughable, really. We finally got in the property.
After a
year away. We moved. We're away from London for a year.
But one thing, I'm so grateful that they moved so quickly, although they were really expensive.
Yeah.
They moved really quickly. And, obviously when a builder is rectifying another person's build, they're going to charge you a lot more. So we had to take a hit in that area. And 4 months in, I remember Aya was just
about to be 6 months.
Was just about to be 7 months.
It was 7 months.
Yeah, he was just turning 7 months when we finally stepped foot and slept in the property for the first time. I will never forget. I don't even want to describe to you what a relief that was. Oh, God.
Yeah, it was an absolute relief. I mean, to be honest, I was just happy that the whole stress was out of the way because it was just long. It's just not. It's not something that I wish on anyone. Like you guys watching, if you're doing renos, it's just not a pleasant experience.
And if this is a moment where you're thinking and you're maybe criticizing and saying, oh, you should have done that, you should have done, like, intelligent people fall for scammers all the time. I want you to remember that anybody, especially given the situation that we were in, could fall for a scammer, really, a cowboy. So, nobody is immune to this kind of situation. So I totally understand if you have some criticism and you have certain things and you're like, why didn't you look at this? Why didn't you look at that?
Listen,
trust me.
I'll criticize myself. If I was watching this video, I'll be the one criticizing as well, because when I look back, I ask myself, how could you just not be switched on to all these things? But at the end of the day, sometimes in life things happen. You don't make the right decisions. You have to pivot, learn to deal with it, adapt, and kind of just get it done, which is what we did. And we felt like we made the best situation out of a horrible position.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Here we are. So I wanted to take this time to answer some questions that I got on Instagram. So the first question, was the renovation cost included in your mortgage or did you have to pay out of pocket? So we already mentioned it at the start of the video. We saved for both the renovation and the deposit. So this person asked, how do you save money on the journey but still have something beautiful? And what are your top tips for someone about to embark on a renovation journey? So I feel like there's little ways that you can save money during your renovation. Like for instance, your kitchen, like the materials. What I will suggest is when you go for something that doesn't have a lot of patterns, because patterns can be very revealing of the costs. So when you get something that is a bit more plain and then you get like expensive accessories, I feel like it makes your build look so much more expensive. So like instead of getting hardwood floors, you can get laminate floors that are of really good quality. Instead of getting marble, you can get quartz. Just don't pick super expensive finishes. Pick finishes that don't have a lot of pattern, because the pattern will reveal kind of the cost and it will show. So get things that are super minimal. Like if you're going to get tiles, for instance, you can get tiles that are really plain, very matte, and then you can accessorize. One thing you cannot save money on is labor. Don't go for like the cheapest build or the cheapest person or the cheapest quote. A lot of the people who are really good are really expensive. Another way you can save money is by doing it incrementally. You don't have to do what we did in terms of doing your whole reno at the same time.
To be honest, one of the other ways you can save a lot of money is by doing stuff yourself.
Yeah.
It's how confident you are, how experimental you are, how bold you are to just learn on the internet.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that do that kind of stuff, but obviously you have to remember that number one, it's going to take longer. Number two, you'll probably make mistakes. Number three, you might end up having to get someone to fix some things, but that will save you a lot of money because, as Tora said, the main charge is labor. So the materials you can actually get relatively cheaply. But if your build is quite big, there's some things that you need people to do, like the digging and, the sort of heavy duty installing steels, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the next question is, are there any renovations in the house that couldn't be repaired, like it was too permanent?
I mean, I wouldn't say that it couldn't be repaired, but we just chose not to. So we were actually initially meant to have floor to ceiling doors in the living room.
Yeah.
But the way Brendan had done it was such that for the new builders to fix it, it was going to cost it was just going to cost a lot of thousands of pounds more to be rectified. So we left it as it is to have normal doors. And also in the process of creating the opening for the double doors, there was a piece of wood that protruded down from the ceiling. Again, to fix that would have cost money. So we kind of it wasn't affecting the structure of the living room. So we just kind of boxed it in.
Yeah.
And, put some, what's that stuff called?
Coving
around it. So you actually won't know that it's there, basically. Yeah. So but everything else that needed to be rectified was rectified.
So the next question is financing strategy. I'm interested in a fixer-upper, but I don't want to pay out of pocket.
Respectfully, you probably shouldn't be looking at a fixer-upper then, because you will pay out of pocket.
You will.
You're going to have to, everyone we know, it's either you spend a lot of money or a lot of time saving, which is what we did. And bear in mind as we're going through the process, we're also saving
as we
salaries
work,
and bonuses and stuff like that. We're just pumping that into the house. So if you want to do a reno and you don't have the cash, you're going to be out. You're going to have to get a loan. You have to get zero interest credit cards, and to be honest, that's not going to help.
We don't even advise that at all.
That's not going to help with the builders because they need, you need to do a bank transfer, and zero interest credit cards only going to help you with, the things you need to purchase for the property. So, the finance strategy really is to save, and if you can't afford to save, think about debt.
So the last question: would you say that renovating was worth it?
You can answer that one.
This is a really difficult one to say. But if I had to do this again, no. I probably wouldn't do a reno. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, was it worth it? I just feel like that's such a loaded question because there's a lot. Renovations can be worth it.
Yeah.
I think it's important to say that. Our experience is very unique.
Yes.
So for us, we're obviously going to answer the question based on our experience.
Yeah.
Was it worth it? Yes and no. That's my answer. Yes, because I don't think you'll get a space that we have like this without renovating or paying a significant amount of money.
Yes.
So that's why it's worth it. No, because of the heartache, the time, the cost. We could have probably put that money, invested that money in, a fund or something and probably doubled the return by now.
Yeah.
Something like, hindsight is 20/20, but that's why I would say it's probably not worth it.
But I think the no is in the sense of like choosing the right builder the first time. And I feel like the right builder makes all of the difference. I feel like we would have been singing like Kumbaya, like if we had gotten the right builder the first time, because I feel like we really hit the lottery with this house because it wasn't crazy expensive, but in terms of value, it's like amazing value. So yes and no. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it's, at least brought you some kind of knowledge or wisdom for your future, especially as you go on with your own renovation journey. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to share more beautiful, amazing videos with you in the future. Thank you so much, Rotimi.
Good luck with your renovations.
Yeah, thank you for coming on my video, because there was a lot that he needed to fill out. And thank you for watching. Mwah. Love you. Bye.